Hey everybody, welcome to Liquid Lunch. It's Friday. You know what that means?
What?
Nothing.
Thank you.
It means the weekend's here.
Okay, so we got Jen McDonald as co-host, and we got Rick Cordeiro. And Rick, we're always look forward to these conversations because we're talking about so many cool things.
Yeah.
I don't even think Jen knows what yet. But let's see: UFOs, global warming, polar vortex, the wall, Superbowl. All kinds of stuff.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, how's everybody out there enjoying the global warming?
Yeah.
Beautiful, eh? Minus 40 wind chill factors.
Hey, yeah.
I mean, Donald Trump, before he was the president, not that I agree with Donald Trump most of the time, but back in 2014, he was telling people that global warming is a giant hoax because at the time they were having like blizzards and ice storms in Texas and Oklahoma, like we're having this week.
Yeah.
Now, this week we're saying, where's the global warming? But then they look at the long-range weather forecast. Next week it's supposed to go up to +7 and +8, and people are going to be riding around on their 10-speed bikes with shorts and T-shirts and not going to believe that we're going through minus 40 wind chill factors this week.
That's only one day, though. That's only Monday.
That's only one day. And then people say, well, why are we getting these really extra cold days? And they're blaming it on something called a polar vortex, which was a term that was created by Barack Obama's top science guy 2 years before Trump came into office. But no one's really going to the root cause of these cold temperatures, and it all has to do with solar activity. And what we're going through right now is called a grand solar minimum.
Yes.
Which means our sun is falling asleep right now. There's little to next to no sunspot activity. And the last time that something like this happened, we had the ice age. So a lot of these people, the scientists who are being told to clam up and that the mainstream media is not covering, they're saying that we're headed towards a mini ice age. You can throw this global warming business out the window because there's no truth to it whatsoever. And so the other thing that tends to happen with the grand solar minimum is, in addition to the temperatures going down, you also have a spike upwards in earthquake and volcanic activity worldwide. So that's what we're happening. Just today, there was an earthquake in southern Mexico. And this past week, we had snow and blizzards in places that almost never get snow, like Rome, Italy, Athens, Greece, and Istanbul, Turkey.
My friend just went. Actually, Daryl, who does some of the shows here, does Liquid Lunch sometime. He's down in Costa Rica. He says it's snowing down there.
Yeah, I had one of my actor friends in Pasadena, California, think I want to get away from this cold in Toronto, and it's only 9 degrees in Pasadena, California right now.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with what the stuff you're talking about. Like, I follow this, and I listen to like all the scientists, not just you want to hear it all. You want both sides.
That's the way it should be.
Right, exactly. So I'm definitely familiar with what you're saying.
Now I want to be able to show a clip that I passed along to Chris from Ron Paul. Back in 2011, he's talking about this wall that Donald Trump's pushing for to build to protect them from the Mexicans and people coming in from Central America.
You mean like Germany? Right? Like build the walls. Nice. Yeah. Is it trap the people in or keep the people out? I'm not sure.
Exactly.
Let's find out right now.
Okay, Chris.
But people who want big fences and guns, sure, we could secure the borders. A barbed wire fence with machine guns, that would do the trick. I don't believe that's what America is all about. I just really don't. We can enforce our law. If we had a healthy economy, this wouldn't be such a bad deal. People are worrying about jobs. But every time you think about this toughness on the border and ID cards and real IDs, think that it's a penalty against the American people, too. I think this fence business is designed and may well be used against us and keep us in. In economic turmoil, the people want to leave with their capital, and there's capital controls and there's people control. So every time you think of a fence keeping all those bad people out, think about those fences maybe being used against us, keeping us in.
The reason why I want to bring this video up with Ron Paul talking about the wall, not only keeping the Mexicans out, but to keep the Americans in, is because the scientists who are talking about this grand solar minimum and saying that there's a mini global ice age on the way and the masses aren't doing anything to prepare themselves for it.
Yeah.
And so what that's going to do, it's going to eliminate the farm belt from America. It's going to be totally wiped out, and people are going to be wanting to escape from America, going down to the warmer climate areas as close as possible to the equator. And so they're building the wall to stop the Americans from leaving, from there being a mass exodus from America, not to keep the Mexicans out. So keep that in mind, that's a conspiracy theory.
Well, the good news for Canadians is that we all know how to build igloos, so it won't mean a thing to us.
Yeah. All right. So on a much lighter note, maybe it's not a lighter note, but this Sunday, February 3rd, we're going to have the Super Bowl. I'm not really a big... I'm a sports fan, but not necessarily a big NFL or football fan. But it's the Super Bowl. It's always gets a large audience, a global stage. It's the Los Angeles Rams against the New England Patriots. And on the lighter side first, for the first time, they're going to have male cheerleaders at the Super Bowl.
Well, it's good to see that trans agenda moving
So if
forward.
you can post us a picture of George W. Bush, there's a former President George W. Bush. He used to be a male cheerleader for the Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts. He was like the leader of the male cheerleaders. So it's not the first time that they've had male cheerleaders, and George W. Bush, the president, was a cheerleader. Not only that, but 3 other presidents were male cheerleaders. Ronald Reagan, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and Franklin D. Roosevelt. So we had 4 ex-presidents in the past that were male cheerleaders. So just thought I'd throw that out to you. But the reason why I also bring up the Super Bowl, thanks, Chris, that's enough of George W. Bush for today or forever. The Super Bowl, if you spend as much time on YouTube like I do, sooner or later you're going to come across these YouTube videos that talk about a false flag operation. Now, if you can post up the one of the school teacher with the blackboard, can you enlarge that? What's a false flag? A horrific staged event blamed on a political enemy and used as a pretext to start a war or enact draconian laws in the name of national security. So that's a false flag. And some people are predicting that there's going to be a false flag operation during the Super Bowl, some major event or a terrorist attack at the top of the third quarter. I don't know how they come up with these things. I hope it doesn't happen, but I just thought I'd throw it out there because there seems to be quite a few videos on YouTube floating around talking about the false flag for the Super Bowl.
So, Rick, who's the halftime entertainment?
I believe it's Justin Timberlake is one of them.
Oh, okay.
And he's been getting a lot of bad press because he's saying you shouldn't. He's just, I don't know why people seem to be against the NFL these days because the players, half of them were against standing up for the national anthem, and so people were boycotting the NFL this year because of it. So,
See, I like the Grey Cup anyways.
Yeah, the Grey Cup? Yeah. Who won that this year? Calgary? Or was it? I can't even remember. I guess I'm a sports fan, but I'm not a football fan.
It was Calgary.
Yeah.
I don't watch sports, so
I
don't even know.
Right, so,
I watched it, but I don't remember.
Yeah, so the next thing I want to post up is a picture of the chimpanzee, Chris. Yesterday was the anniversary of the Ham the chimpanzee, the first non-human hominid launched into space on January 31, 1961. As a part of America's space program. And the next picture with just the remains, the bones, is the one I want to show next. No, not that one. Not that one. Not that one.
It's gone.
Not that one.
Oh.
I sent it to you as well, no? Didn't I?
The Illuminati has intervened.
Okay. Well, I wanted to show his remains because they actually kept his bones, and it's being kept at the National Museum of Space History in New Mexico. I don't know why they do that for. Just bury the monkey and leave him alone. Maybe they studied his bones afterwards to see the effects of what space travel did to him.
I'm surprised that they didn't lose those bones like they lost all the moon landing footage.
That's the one. That's his remains. That's how he looks like today, Ham the chimpanzee.
Oh.
He passed away in 1983 at the age of 26. But anyways, I don't know why they do that. They keep his...
Well, they kept Lenin's brain. I believe it's still there. Maybe they can clone this chimp one day.
I think it's also Albert Einstein's brain that they kept. They have a piece of it at McMaster University down the road in Hamilton, Ontario.
Perfect.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, now we can post up the image of the Egyptians. We're almost done with the imagery. That's just something. I have a brand new Facebook group called Intergalactic Archives. So if you're interested in this kind of discussion like we're having today about ufology, the paranormal, and the world of conspiracy theories, I started this at the beginning of this year, so it's just a month old. We got about 66 members right now. I'm not really concerned about building up a lot of followers. I'm more concerned, my focus is quality over quantity, but if you look up Intergalactic Archives on Facebook, and you see this at the top of where the heading is, then you'll know you found the right spot. It's a private board, and just ask for admission, and I'll let you in because I'm the moderator. All right? So that's that. Any questions so far, anybody?
Well, what's this picture all about? Those Egyptians.
Those Egyptians with the elongated skulls.
Covered up by those hats.
Covered up by those hats to not scare away the commoners, so that they were not, I don't know if they were not, back then, they weren't necessarily open about telling the people they lead that they were not of this world.
Yeah, I know, but
So
we don't know what.
They had to cover their skulls. Well, at least the little guy here, he's not wearing a hat, so you can see how his skull is a little bit extra enlarged. And
all right.
anyways, it's the kind of stuff that the Rockefellers and the Vatican Archives, as soon as they find stuff like this, that archaeological digs, they like to hide it from the general public and hide it and hoard it away so that we never know the real history of mankind on planet Earth.
It is being uncovered, though. They're finding more. Like the ones with the elongated skulls, I wish I could remember, but there was a specific place that they were coming from.
Well, they got them in Peru. They found a bunch.
Is that it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because there was evidence that the people, like that they are from here, that they're from a specific place with that elongated skull.
Yeah, now I'd like to get going eventually with a show here at that channel that I host by the same name as this Facebook group called Intergalactic Archives, where every show, for now it's going to be probably about once a month, I have a different guest, and I have a couple of really good ones that I have in mind that will be coming in here that I want to interview, and that people will be interested in listening to, and I hope to get started on that. But the other thing, too, I would be starting this already if I didn't have this. I have a film project that I'm involved in that's going to be shot in Italy, and parts of it in the UK in Pinewood Studios, where we're going to use for the Viking ship scenes, because we're getting the Viking ships from a group over there in England. And so we figure to avoid the chance of the Viking ships either getting lost, stolen, or damaged when you transport them from UK to Italy, where most of the film shoot's going to take place, for those scenes we'll go film it in England to avoid all that stuff and keep the insurance costs down, and film inside a studio with the green screen, and then the rest of the film, 85 to 90% of the film, will be shot on location in Italy. The film's called 1000 The Sword and Stone. Nothing to do with the Disney films by the same name. This is a true, genuine Sword and Stone that you can find in Italy, north of Rome in the St. Galgano Chapel. And so that's what our movie's going to be about, but we're going to also throw in some science fiction and fantasy thrown into it, so it's going to have a feel along the lines of Lords of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia, Harry Potter, that kind of a feel. And have a budget of about $20 million. And right now we're dealing with the investors. We're making some good progress with that. And so I'd like to get going with this show over here. I'm going to call it more than likely Interactive Archives, like the Facebook group.
So,
but I got this other side project going on in Europe as well.
Just because I don't know much about what you're doing, we just met. Right?
Yeah.
Is your are you leaning toward like the extraterrestrials or aliens, whatever, UFOs are real, or that it's part of the conspiracy? Like
I'm covering all the angles
of conspiracy.
Me personally, I'm a believer,
okay,
and I'm an experiencer as well.
Okay.
So I'm an experiencer, like sightings of UFOs and orbs, and also what is known as USOs, underwater submerged objects. UFOs are unidentified flying objects, but we see them coming out of the water too, especially from the western end of Lake Ontario. So I'm an experiencer of the sightings. I'm an experiencer of the abduction phenomena and of the contact. And up till now, I've been starting to get open about the sightings. Not so much yet about the abduction, and especially not so much about the contact. But I'm starting to get more comfortable about it now. This stuff is true. Hard to believe. Even though I am an experiencer, I wake up in the mornings and I shake my head, and it's like, it's hard to believe, even as an experiencer. Almost like you don't want to believe it. It's almost like, I wish this stuff never happened to me, right?
I have to believe.
You have to believe. Are you an experiencer as well, you?
I
No.
am.
That's all right. I understand.
I am. I do have just a different perspective on it.
Yeah.
Which I won't get into.
You're right.
I'll do I'd have to do a show on it because it goes
but
right
I mean,
another
like,
time.
When you experience something like this, and it's like your first time, who do you go to? I mean, do you go to the phone book? Who do you look in the phone book, in the white page or the yellow pages? You going to call the police? You sit down with the cops. Oh, really? Okay, so what did you have to drink? Do you have any drugs? We had a party? They're going to ask questions like that, and then maybe you might feel ridiculed, you'll feel uncomfortable, and they'll make you feel like you're a crackpot or that you lost your marbles, and then that stops people from coming out and opening up about their experience. So when I started to... I shouldn't say when I started, because this has been lifelong for me, but when it really peaked for me during the early 20s, my experience with this whole phenomena of the ufology and the sightings and the contact and abductions, I was having some bad relations with my family. I couldn't even pick up the phone and call them and tell them what happened because, okay, I had a fight with them. We weren't on speaking terms, so now I'm going to pick the phone. Oh, by the way, I saw these lights outside my apartment last night, and then they came closer and they beamed the lights in my apartment. They were scanning the inside of the room like they were looking for something. After something told me to go hide behind the couch and go hide and stuff, and like, right, they're going to think, okay, are you on drugs or something right now? So I never told no one. I kept shut about it for the longest time. But then when I moved to Toronto, I joined up with a UFO group here where they have regular monthly meetings. They no longer do, I don't know why, but when I first moved here, they did. And it was made up of believers and experiencers. And some of the believers were not experiencers, but they had an open mind, and they were just curious to find out what other people's experience was with all this stuff. So that's that. This is a picture.
Are these aliens?
The Alpha Centaurians.
Oh, they are.
I don't know if you ever heard of... these guys have been talked about by former Canadian Defense Minister Paul Hillier, who I believe you've had as a guest before on the show.
Yes, we have.
And Paul Hillier is considered to be one of the, if not the, highest-ranking government official in the world to come out and openly admit the existence of UFOs, flying saucers, and extraterrestrials. Not only the former Canadian Defense Minister Paul Hillier, but there's another ufologist by the name of David Wilcock, who has a number of videos on YouTube. He's come out and admit that there's been some special treaties that have been signed up between planet Earth and these beings from the Alpha Centauri star system that is about approximately 4 light years away from planet Earth. These treaties have been signed that allow them to live and walk amongst us, amongst the humans. Although when they walk around in crowds like you see here in this picture, they're usually accompanied by military personnel from Earth, like these really large, big, buff guys for protection, but not too close, just far enough that they can keep an eye on them. And there's 2 towns in the United States that have been given to them so that they can use as a safe haven or a refuge. And one of those cities is Paradise, California. Do you know what...
that's where those fires were, Rick.
That's where those fires got started.
Those mysterious fires.
That's where those fires got started. Now, here's where another conspiracy starts. Paradise, California, where the fire started in California, is a town where these Alpha Centaurians were given as a safe haven and a refuge. Now, there's a number of videos popping up all over YouTube that shows that these California wildfires have been started up by direct energy weapons. These blue beams coming down from the skies, and it's the United States Air Force that's doing it. Now, the people are saying, why would the United States be doing that to their own people?
Are there people still asking that question?
Here's another here's another conspiracy theory. Over the years, there's been a shadow war between the United States Navy and the United States Air Force. The United States Navy is part of what they call the Alliance. The Alliance is a group that's supposedly going up against the cabal or the deep state, the shadow government. And that's who the Air Force is on the side of. They're on the side of deep state. The Air Force, they've been infiltrated by the Nazis since World War II. A lot of the Nazis, top scientists and military people came over, infiltrated the U.S. Air Force and the space agency, NASA. But they didn't with the Navy or the Marines. They were untouched. So the Navy and the Marines you can almost trust 100%. But the Air Force, they're corrupt. They're the bad guys. So there's this shadow war, allegedly, that's the magic word of the day, allegedly, that's going on between the U.S. Navy and the United States Air Force. And so these guys are supposed to be on the good side. They're benevolent beings, meaning good, friendly beings. And they're on the side of the Alliance. They were given a safe haven and refuge in Paradise, California by the Alliance. But when the cabal found out about it, they sent the Air Force to come down and kill them. That's why when you see pictures of these houses, they're burnt down to the ground. Nothing left over, but they're right beside them. The grass, the trees are untouched. Plastic garbage cans are not even melted. But their vehicles are melted right to the ground.
So are you saying only the alien houses were affected?
When the cabal found out the homes that these Alpha Centaurians are living in, they hit the houses with the direct energy weapons.
Now, where did you get that? I never heard that one before.
David Wilcock on a show called Edge of Wonder. He was a special guest on a show called Edge of Wonder. You can look it up. And
so did they get killed, the Alpha Centaurians?
No, because most of the time they live underground. So they don't know if they lived. Some of them lived, some of them died off. So they live, they're given these houses. That's supposed to be like a front to say, okay, they live in these homes. But then there's these elevators that take them down underground and to an underground railway system that takes them to a city underground where they actually live. So the houses on top are just where they enter.
I see. It's just a facade.
So hopefully they're saying that they were able to escape down below on the underground railway towards the underground city where they're supposed to be living.
Do they drink a lot of sour milk?
I don't know about that, but according to these guys, they like to hang around a lot at the California farm markets.
Maybe that's to get the milk that'll go sour because it's not pasteurized.
Well, the thing is, they were warning people, now that you know that they like around the California farm markets, don't go down to looking for these people, because if they know that your intention of trying to look for them, they'll do one of these for you and give you what is called the mind wipe.
Yeah, the Jedi mind
wipe,
trick.
Which means you'll have amnesia and you'll never remember why you went in the first place.
These aren't the droids you're looking for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a lot of this stuff like that I haven't figured out like through experience, right?
Right.
Like there's some like just very strange, bizarre things.
Are we still in the air, Hugh? Okay.
That happen?
So there's a lot of weird things like that. So my focus now as an investigator and researcher of this whole field of ufology and paranormal, I come across so many stories over the years how mankind has always, in one way, shape, or another, had some sort of interaction with beings either from interplanetary or interdimensional. Not
See,
of
that's
this,
where
not
I fall in line.
Interdimensional,
interdimensional, but not interplanetary.
That's what I say too.
Because the Pentagon looks at stuff like invisibility cloaking, wormholes and stargates, and manipulation of interdimensional realities. I know. So we're not just dealing with flesh and blood.
Because flesh and blood doesn't exist.
We're talking about
and that's the part I focus on, is how to understand the energy, to understand what is true and what's not.
Right.
Because there are laws to energy, laws to the universe. Right. There are things that can exist and things that cannot.
Everything is
and that's
energy.
What I figured out. And so I'm trying to apply it all to
and the latest
all
thing is some of these extraterrestrial beings are studying mankind closely because we have something that they don't have. They say we have a soul. They don't have a soul. So they're watching us very closely because, especially when we die, because they want to see where our souls travel to, because we go to a dimension that they're not allowed to, they don't have access to, because we have a soul and they don't. But then again, when it gets even deeper, they say we live in a hologram world, and this is not the real world where everything's taking place. This is sort
well,
of
the hologram theory actually isn't a theory that people know. They use that to solve and figure out other things in science.
Right.
That it's not actually, hey, I'm saying it's a hologram. Although everything does indicate like it's a simulation made of light and sound, that it's a simulation. But it is actually something that the physicists use as a tool, not like this theory that everybody's taking it as.
Well, everything's all energy, and I believe it. And that really dawned on me after I read a book called The Celestine Prophecy, where they talk about how everything is energy and everyone's always competing for it, and sometimes people always fight for it. And there's no need to fight for it because there's enough to go around for everyone if you tap into it with your meditation and yoga breathing exercises. There's more than enough to go around for everyone. It's and this is like why when before a couple meets, they feel like they're half circles like this, but when it's the perfect couple and there's a good equal give and take in a relationship, they form a perfect circle. But what starts to happen after a while is there's an imbalance. Sometimes the other partner is always asking to get more energy from the other partner, and so they're always trying to take from each other, and that's where things start to go wrong. And that's the problem with the world today, is we're always trying to take, and it should be the other way around, is give, because if you give enough to other people and everybody practices that, eventually you're going to start getting it from other people too, because they're giving it away. But because our mindset's backwards in the world, it's always about taking away and stealing it from everybody, and that includes energy. Sometimes a parent will be scolding a kid and just scolding. It's because they're trying to suck the energy out of the kid, and they don't really realize that consciously what they're doing, but subconsciously they're sucking the energy out of the kid and they don't even realize it. And it's the same thing with relationships that go bad, especially abusive relationships. They're trying to steal the energy from the other person. It's all about energy, and that's why people say there's such things as energy vampires or energy parasites that are always out to look to steal the energy out of people. It's like sometimes I'll go to a party just to talk to someone, and it's like, how come every time I go talk to this person, after about 5 minutes, I feel really tired. I feel like all my energy's been sucked out. It's because they suck the energy out of you. There are such things out there called the energy vampires. So I learned that from a book called The Celestine Prophecy. Everything is all energy, and there's no need to fight over it because there's enough to go around in the world for everyone. And if everyone just practices about giving to others instead of taking all the time.
Well, also, but
then,
even in giving, understanding that it's without doing self-harm, self-sacrifice.
Right.
'Cause that's another side that people sit on, is being the martyr, where they give. They're wonderful people, they're very giving, but they never keep the balance of giving to themselves and not harming themselves in order to give. So it has to be a balance of caring for self and others in a balanced way.
Because if you're too much like that, you can become a victim of some
Absolutely.
energy vamp.
That's why a narcissist and a martyr are a perfect match.
You got to keep your guard up all the time. You have to be aware of it. But the thing is, most people aren't aware of it. We walk around every day like walking zombies, like robots every day, working 9 to 5, got to get up in the morning, go to work, and everything is all energy, and people are competing for it, and there's no need to compete for it because there's enough energy to go around for everybody.
We are energy.
Okay, Rick, though, but what about this David Paulides guy?
Yes, that's right.
The Sasquatches.
Exactly. So I love a good mystery, and this one tops the list for me. There's a former police detective by the name of David Paulides. Was a police detective in America for close to 25 years. And he's not doing that right now. He investigates people that go missing in national parks in America. And last year, for example, you won't believe this number. In the United States alone, there was over 650,000 people that went missing in national parks. If you include the numbers of Canada and Mexico, then it's pushing close to 800,000 people a year. And you never hear these numbers talked about in the mainstream media. He doesn't want to come out and say exactly what's happening. What he does is he presents the facts and presents to people what he finds, and he leaves it to the listener and the viewer to come up with their own conclusions of what's happening. But the conclusions that most people come up with is they figure this is paranormal in nature, because a lot of times there's no trace of clothing. They send out the dogs can't even to scent, and they can't even find any traces of them. And but then on a side note, he also is on a personal quest to prove the existence of the Bigfoot monster. But you won't have him come out and admit that it's this Bigfoot monster, these creatures doing the kidnapping, and that's why these people go missing, because he says it'll wreck his reputation as an investigator of these missing people, especially for the families of these missing people. So he doesn't want to come out and say that this Bigfoot monster, but also because there are other reasons why these things could be happening, especially when you have numbers like 650,000 and 800,000 in North America continent. And then he shows this map during his presentations of the North American continent, and there's supposed to be about 49 geographical clusters in North America where these people go missing. And they all tend to be around large bodies of water, either on the west or east coast along the Pacific or Atlantic, and especially around the Great Lakes regions where we are, Ontario, Erie, Huron, Superior, and Michigan. And so I've been watching a lot of those videos lately, and I talked about that on our group, Interactive Archives. And if you're interested in looking up this guy's videos, they use hashtag Missing411, which is a lot of these books that document these missing people are called. Hashtag Missing411, I should say. And also hashtag Can-Am Project. Can-Am meaning Canadian American, because the North American map he shows with the 49 geographical clusters also includes Canada, especially around the Great Lakes region.
You know what I heard, Rick, was that, I mean, when we think about Sasquatches, normally we think about the Pacific Northwest or British Columbia,
exactly.
the West
Sasquatch,
Coast, right?
Saskatchewan.
But apparently there are Sasquatches in Ontario. It's well documented.
I met someone in our UFO group here in Toronto that talked about his experience with it. Now, the thing is, some of these people believe that they are also interdimensional beings, and they seem to come around after a UFO sighting, or you know the movie The Predator, when you kind of see the predator moving in the forest, but it's almost like looking through a saran wrap, and you just see the outline.
Yeah,
that's how they move around. That's why you can't find them out. Then all of a sudden, they show up the last second. So they're able to. They have some sort of invisibility cloaking ability. And that's why they're hard to find, and that's why they figure there must be interdimensional beings, these creatures, like you find in the Predator movie that Jesse Ventura and Arnold Schwarzenegger were in. So, yeah, we had this one guy in a group, UFO group here in Toronto, that talked about an experience he had, and you're right, it's not just in British Columbia and Saskatchewan, we have them right here in Ontario.
Yeah, there's
as well.
evidence of them building little structures in the forest out of branches and stuff like that. Also, they've given drawings.
Oh, wow.
Like, they haven't
I didn't
actually
know that.
seen these creatures, but they've left drawings.
Wow.
They've left marbles, and you can hear them. There are audio recordings of them. This is all from Ontario.
Wow!
So you can just look up Sasquatch Ontario.
Fascinating.
Stuff will come up.
Really good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, and that's probably what gave George Lucas the idea for that Chewbacca character in Star Wars, is the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot monster.
Well, I can't do it today.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
That was awesome. That made my day. I'm a big Star Wars fan. Thank you. I appreciate that. That was really good.
Chewbacca. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
okay, Rick, anything else you want to...
yeah, just again, I have this new group called Interactive Archives on Facebook, and where we talk about all this kind of stuff and more, the ufology, paranormal, and conspiracy theories. And we're more than happy to have any who's out there join. And we're allowed to have disagreements as long as it's done in a civilized manner.
Yeah, and we should say that I know it's a very exciting field project you got happening in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to that. People can follow you on Twitter, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And, yeah.
That's
and
about it, yeah.
We look forward to having you back next month, talking about more stuff like this.
Of course.
And that show. Really looking forward to this show.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Definitely.
Thank you, Rick. All right, we're going to take a little break. We've got lots more coming up here. LiquidLunch.thatchannel.com. See you in a couple minutes.